Hello there, this is Matthew, and I'm here with something that'll be an occasional feature. I'm planning on not only talking about my own work that I'm working on, but also reviewing things, specifically things that I like, because I could do a real quick review for something I don't like and just say it's bad. We'll see. But today I wanted to review Spider-Girl, Volume 1. Apparently the the run that started of Spider-Girl in the MC2, which was a spin-off Marvel Universe that was set, 15, 20 years in the future from whatever the comics were doing in 98. It had a run of 12 volumes worth of Spider-Girl, which I think works out to somewhere around 70 issues. And then apparently Spider-Girl got picked up and brought into the main Marvel Universe in a really weird way, back in 2007, and then over and over again they did little things with her before the whole Spider-Verse thing exploded, and then she was brought in even on that. Anyway, just gonna go ahead and talk about it for a little bit. The first volume covers issue 0, which was a full comic book, and it covers, I think, issues 1 through 5 after that, and they're all related, and issue 0 could have been issue 1 in my opinion. They do make some changes to May, her hair goes from being black in issue 0 to pretty much being red in the rest of the story, and I don't know, maybe she looks a little different. There's crop tops abound in issue 1, but they don't really go away, or in issue 0, but they don't really go away after that. But real quick, I want to share some of my history with Spider-Man, because this first volume of Spider-Girl is called Legacy, and it definitely does deal with the legacy of Peter Parker and his spider powers and all that entailed for him and his family. I was, I think, 10 years old in 1998 when this came out. I was getting the new chapter, which was a relaunch of Spider-Man after the Gathering of 5, where Norman Osborn went crazy and some other things happened. There was a new Spider-Girl coming about. This was post Spider-Man's Identity Crisis, which was which was actually a short run. I thought it was huge, but apparently looking back it wasn't that big. And this was post Clone Saga. So I had met Ben Reilly in the Onslaught comic books, the graphic novels, the trade paperbacks that they had, collecting the whole story together, and that was a fun X-Men Fantastic Four, all Marvel Universe kind of crossover thing. But Ben Reilly was in that, in his awesome suit, anyway, it's the suit that Spider-Girl wears, and for good reason. But anyway, so that's some of my history with Spider-Man. I enjoyed the cartoon that was out during the 90s, and the history goes deeper for me. I have a 6-year-old daughter. Probably 2 years ago, I showed her the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. We watched, I think, all 3 of them. I think then afterwards we saw the Andrew Garfield ones, and it wasn't an intense thing, I need to show you all this Spider-Man. It just kind of happened. And then on Hulu we were able to find the first issue, not the first issue, my goodness, we found the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, and the tone of that is great for kids, just like the animated Batman cartoon. And actually, I was surprised. Similar to the animated or Batman the Animated Series from the 90s, the Spider-Man cartoon really holds up fairly well. Of course, there's junky pseudoscience in it, but that's how comics exist. The Fantastic Four got hit by cosmic rays, and instead of dying from radiation poisoning, they all got these fantastic powers, or wondrous powers as they call them. Yeah, getting back, she liked Spider-Girl, that's kind of spoilers. She liked Spider-Man from the movies, even though some things were too intense. Green Goblin is a dastardly bad man who, murders people in the Sam Raimi movie. And in the cartoon, he just, does bad stuff and goes after Spider-Man. I don't think he ever actually kills anybody in the cartoon. But anyway, she saw the cartoon, she liked that, and I was flipping through comics recently on Amazon, actually, and through the Kindle app, and I found that they have Spider-Girl, and so I decided to buy the first volume here and see if she wanted to check it out. And so my daughter and I had our own Spider-Man legacy type of thing, and I read Spider-Girl to her, and we both really enjoyed it. Tom DeFalco was the writer. The pencils were done by Pat O'Leaf, with Ron Friends helping out, apparently, and I'm sure because it spans a couple issues, issues that's why there's, a lot of people. And then the inks were done by Al Williamson with Bill Schindler. I can't pronounce that name. I'm sorry. I think it's a Polish name. I have trouble with those. But anyway, it was a really good adventure story. It's solid. May is definitely a very heroic character. Spider-Girl is May Day Parker. The premise for her story is that in a final confrontation with the Green Goblin, Peter lost his leg, and after he lost his left leg got blown up or maybe crushed by debris because Norman Osborn killed himself in this massive explosion, and he wanted both him and Spider-Man to die, and instead Norman died. And, Peter's leg was amputated, and he has a false leg that he uses. And after he quit being Spider-Man, just because I guess he didn't think he could handle it with this disability, he went ahead and, I guess, went back to school and went through some training to become a CSI. I mean, he's a smart guy. And he just applied himself, and he became a crime scene investigator, and he works for the police as a forensics officer, really, I guess is what it is. But somebody else from the late 90s Marvel makes an appearance as his lab assistant, and it's Phil Urich, who is the good Green Goblin. He also was he was also involved in the Onslaught storyline, and there was some really interesting stuff with him there. So that was a treat for me to see him back. But anyway, that's kind of the premise. Peter and Mary Jane didn't tell May about his history, and Peter had watched May for years and figured she didn't have any spider powers. But then one day during a basketball game, her powers start to manifest. Mary Jane and Peter are shocked. Norman Osborn's grandson, Normie, who is Harry and Liz Allen's, Harry and Liz's kid, he ends up having become obsessed with Spider-Man and with how Spider-Man and Peter Parker ruined his family, and he sends a message to May and asks her to give it to her dad to basically have a final confrontation with him and end this and avenge his grandfather and his father. And he might even blame what's going on with his mom, which I can't remember right now what it was, on Spider-Man. But anyway, so it's very interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Peter and Mary Jane are still together. They have a healthy relationship. They fight a little bit over whether or not May should be Spider-Girl, because in issue 0 she gets in Ben Reilly's suit, and I love that she has an Uncle Ben too, by the way. That just makes me so happy. Anyway, she gets in Ben Reilly's suit and she defeats the Goblin. She saves Normie. They had played together as kids. She knew him. She had a sense of right and wrong, and he was after she defeated him, he was about to get hit by a semi-truck or something, and she decided to save him, which is really cool because it just shows a strength of character and moral clarity that she has, and that's kind of something I'm going to come back to. But over the next 5 issues or so, what May does is struggles to know what the right thing is to do. She has kind of an inverse of Peter's responsibility message, or she interprets being responsible with her power, with her great power, in a different way. Peter had a terrible experience where he lost his uncle because he was being irresponsible with his power, and he, had the life he had since then, and it led to him losing his leg and almost dying several times, and there was a lot of tragedy and a lot of sadness in his life because of being Spider-Man and using those powers. And now that May has the powers, she actually doesn't lose someone. She doesn't lose her dad, and she doesn't even let Norman die. And I think it's really important for her because she's so different from Peter. I'm not even sure. I don't get a good read on Mary Jane's personality in the comics just because I never read enough comics with Mary Jane in them. So, like I said, I don't really have a great read on her as a person. But May definitely seems different from Peter in a lot of ways, except for obviously the sense of responsibility and the heroic streak. But I think one of the most fascinating things about her is that she is allowed to struggle a lot. And the forces she's fighting against aren't just external. It's not, can I defeat this bad guy? It's, first of all, it's really cool because she's a novice and she's learning on the fly, and you see her get to really struggle. And I think at one point she goes out because she's sneaking out, which I'll get back to, and she doesn't have her web shooters on her, so she's at a disadvantage because she's got her agility and her spider sense and her strength, but the webs really are useful, as we, as you know, Spider-Man has proven, and as you know, she used them to great effect in previous issues of the story. But May has a great struggle with her parents and with herself. She wants to know if she can live with herself having this power and not using it to help others, because that's what her parents are telling her to do. Now, I said that Peter and Mary Jane disagree on what she should do. Mary Jane doesn't want her to get hurt, but she's not as against her becoming Spider-Girl as Peter is. And I get that. You know, Mary Jane lived for years with her husband being Spider-Man, and I think from that perspective, you know, May becoming Spider-Girl kind of feels like, well, I've been here before, and we were okay, and it was hard, but at least we're still here together, and that's the important part. Whereas Peter knows what it's like to be on the other side. He knows what it's like to be in the webs, and to have that risk, to have the fear, and you know, the pain and suffering that comes along with putting others before yourself, putting your life on the line when you have people at home waiting for you. And May, I think she respects that, and she gets that to a degree, but at the same time, there's the teen aspect of, well, you did this when you were a kid, Dad, when you were younger than me, so why can't I do this? And it's really nice because I almost like the whole Parker House aspect of Spider-Girl more than I enjoy her being Spider-Girl. Of course, her being Spider-Girl is cool. I love the Ben Reilly suit. I think it's fabulous. It's probably my favorite Spider-Man suit. And of course, you know, Spider-Girl suit. But the action's pretty good. You know, she's quippy. She's figuring things out. She only really web slings, and I think she's like tied somebody to something before. But like, she doesn't use the impact webbing, or she doesn't do any of the more like novel things that like Scarlet Spider was doing, or you know, Spider-Man can do. As time goes on, after decades and decades of just swinging around and tying people up and stuff with his webs. But like, the family struggle is really interesting because May's main conflict is, do I disobey my parents and do the right thing, or do I listen to them and bear the life or injury of somebody else on my conscience? And when I say that, it's not that she's being selfish, it's that she's seeing, well, that with great power comes great responsibility, and she wants to use that and apply that to herself. And I don't think she wants an exception or an out just because she's young or anything like that. Anyway, my daughter really liked it. As soon as we finished Volume 1, she said, let's read the next one. I had to tell her to hold off because, you know, we can only read so much so fast, and I just wanted a breather. And I think we finished it the day before we went to go see Spider-Man Homecoming together. So I said, you know, let's watch the movie, and then we'll come back and get more, you know, Spider stuff here in the comics. So yeah, I really liked Spider-Girl. It's a very interesting take on the powers transferring. I love the fact that time has transpired. You've got Phil Urich, who is seen as her uncle, and he's kind of training her to, I guess, hone her agility and the use of her spider sense and things like that. So it's cool that you have these mentor characters for May, and there's even this Dark Devil who is the ghost of the Daredevil, they say in the comic. That, you know, that's potentially who he is. There's legend about that, I guess. And he tries to mentor May too as Spider-Girl. He doesn't know she's May Parker. He could, but I don't know that he knows that. But it's just a really fun, interesting look at a new superhero coming up in a world of superheroes that already exist, and I really like it. I honestly, I like Spider-Girl more than I like Spider-Man Homecoming, and I think it's too bad they don't make a Spider-Girl movie, although I'm not sure I'd want them to at this point, or not with the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe is currently structured. So, anyway, that's it. If you like this video, and you like my, go ahead and check out my other stuff. If you like that, subscribe, hit notifications so that you'll get mobile notifications of whenever a new video comes out. And don't forget to hit the like button. I guess giving that thumbs up tells YouTube to put me in more people's faces, or put these videos in people's feeds so they can check them out too. And yeah, I really enjoy comic books. I'm very selective about what I choose to read because time is limited and money's limited, and I feel like